नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्. Hello and welcome to my channel Kaliyuga Dharma. Now there is no exact beginning where we can put our fingers and we can say the Mahabharata began exactly at this time, because the Mahabharata is a history of a time period with a few key characters in focus. While individuals' lifetimes have beginnings, their own times and events are a continuation of circumstances left behind by their predecessors. Likewise, the Adiparva does not begin in one particular place as such, but with various stories and episodes from the lives of various characters who lived at the time of the Mahabharata's public narration, long after the deaths of the Pandavas. And it is here in this regard that we will see Vedavyasa tell us how exactly was the impetus to publicly narrate the Mahabharata set in place, and who exactly set it in place, and who gave this impetus to narrate the Mahabharata publicly. In other words, we will start off in today's episode by looking at the preceding scenarios that set the actual stage for Vyasa's student Vaishampayana Muni's narration of the Mahabharata itself. Now a little on the Karmaphalas to be gained, the Punyakarmaphalas to be gained by listening to and pondering over Mahabharata. We keep coming across this concept, Karmaphala, everywhere. What exactly is it? So most lay people among Hindus would tell you that it is just a reaction to any action. But Sanatani sages such as Markandeya have said very clearly that it is like a shadow that goes wherever the Jivatman goes. And this shadow triggers scenarios and even events around it. For the software coder in you, if any one of you is listening, you can take Karmaphala like a source code that keeps running in the universe's actors' backgrounds in an unseen manner, triggering feelings, events, interactions, and opening avenues to new feelings, new thoughts, new events, new interactions, and conclusions on these. It is an unseen yet tangibly existent footprint of our actions which shadows our souls like an actual shadow shadows our bodies. And as long as the soul roams in samsara, the Jivatman roams in samsara, it's going to be shadowed by its karma kosha containing its karma phalas. The only place where this shadow does not exist is Vaikuntha, as it is a place void of karma phala. This is something we will eventually see in more detail in the future of the Mahabharata's various parts and its various episodes. Now, since our initial episode deals with a dog, we will gain an understanding at a very basic level of how Sanatana Dharma views animals in general. Animals are no different from other creations in terms of how any created life form exists. A soul takes on a body according to its karma phala at a period of its time in samsara. The karma phala has an imprint, so to speak, on the body type that the soul will animate, allowing it to exercise faculties of life and experience past karma phalas in a unique way, while also giving it the possibility of realizing God through future actions and ultimately reaching God himself. Like any other life form, free will for an animal exists, and it is limited in windows by its karma, a very interesting topic for a future discussion. An animal's body is thus a bearer of the information as to what all karma it did in various preceding lifetimes, which have proffered upon the soul, the body of that animal. Its behaviors can further throw light on various actions committed by it in preceding lifetimes. To be able to study all this, frankly, you need to be something like a sage, because only they knew what behavior meant what happened in your previous life. Today we have lost the ability to do this, and we have lost the knowledge to do this. But it doesn't mean it can't be done. There are sages who can do it. Now in this case, a dog is subject of our discussion, and so we will focus a bit more on the dog itself. While people like to keep dogs as pets, dogs are not exactly to be domesticated according to Sanatana Dharma, at least not in the manner in which they are domesticated today. They are meant to run free and wild. They have bodily gunas arising out of their past karma, which makes them unfit to enter places where Yagnya activities are going on. And thus one cannot have a dog in a house or any place where a yagnya is done. The metaphysics behind this is that certain body types, unbeknownst even to the said animal, attracts forces detrimental to a yagnya, the dog being one such. This rule extends to other carnivores in general. There are indeed few animals allowed into Yagnyashalas, as we shall see through the Mahabharata itself. Needless to say, no animal is evil just because of its body type. It does not even know that its presence renders a Yagnya useless. It lives according to its intelligence and Swabhava Dharma, and if an animal did enter a Yagnyashala and render a Yagnya void, it would be the fault of the humans in question performing that Yagnya, and the sin of that Yagnya being rendered void will be distributed among those humans and it will not reach the animal whatsoever. So Arjuna's grandson Janamejaya happened to be conducting a Yagnya at the time when a small pup began to enter the place. Now the people there should have ideally distracted the pup and made it run off elsewhere. But since Kali Yuga had already begun, man already was a hasty, hot-headed and blundering creature at this time, all of which is showcased in the behavior of Janamajaya's brothers who ran up to the pup and they brutally kicked it, trying to drive it away from the Yagnya. Now, needless to say, this is a very huge sin, as we as human beings who are supposedly more sophisticated than animals, we are supposed to show kindness and compassion. We don't even frankly need a scripture to tell this to us. We should know this instinctively. Nevertheless, scriptures do say it. Being humans, we are supposed to show kindness and compassion more than anyone else. And what's worse is that it is extremely unbecoming of Kshatriyas to show such barbarian behavior at a Yagnya, that too. The mother of the dog, who heard what has happened to her child, marched into the same place where the Yagnya is going on and very harshly reprimanded everyone over there. She said that for a great king who is supposedly a scholar and a protector of creatures, Janamejaya is a lowly fellow who does not even have the kindness and compassion four-legged animals seem to have. And she cursed the king Janamejaya, saying that just the way his family members terrified her child, a great paranoia and fear will haunt him in the days to come. Merely hearing the curse terrified the king, and as the dog mother had said, the king over the next few days, weeks, months, he flew into a paranoid fear as to what the dog's curse even meant. Now observe how funny it is that in a way, to think that the dog's curse itself was fear and paranoia, and the king, by wondering what the curse would do to him, became afraid and paranoid, which was basically what the dog had cursed. So in all his wanderings to find a sage who could help him perform prayashchitta to remove this paranoia, he came across a half-human, half-Naga sage, Somashrava, the son of Shrutashrava and a Naga woman. Here I must address two things. What is a prayashchitta? Who are Nagas? Prayashchittas are physically taxing, mentally punishing austerities accompanied by religious rites performed in order to repent for a sin. They are not just blind rituals but physically and mentally punishing exercises of spiritual self-reflection and self-chastisement. If you think you are at liberty to perform any sin you want, whenever you want, and then wipe your slate clean using a prayashchitta, you are wrong. In fact, those who deliberately commit sins and perform token prayashchitta rituals will get even more sin for having taken Paramatma for a total fool and insulting the prayashchitta ritual he has created for genuinely repentant people. So that's what a prayashchitta is. That being said, what is a Naga? Like humans, they are a celestial race of creatures that inhabit multiple lokas, not just the earth. There are those among them on other lokas with higher powers of penance, giving them shape-shifting abilities, abilities like interstellar travel. They have abilities like metaphysical abilities like shape-shifting, interstellar travel, and various other supernatural and metaphysical abilities to be able to read minds, etc. While the inferior Nagas among them, they appear more frequently around us as animals, that is, snakes. So snakes on earth are also of the Naga race. They just may not show the great siddhis that their brethren on other lokas can show. So on the earth, as far as the earth is concerned today, the Nagas do not behave very differently from other animals. This is seen across multiple creatures, including the humans. Just the way penancing humans can be seen in Devaloka with metaphysical powers, non-penancing, ignorant, ordinary humans like ourselves are seen on earth today. The same goes for Nagas and many other creatures in creation. Now, if Rishi Shrutashrava was able to create a son through a Naga woman, it does not mean that we also can. the kind of Naga woman through whom he could have created his son would have been one of the celestially powerful Nagas of the kind I just described. And that lady probably took on a form enabling her to bear the child of a human father in her stomach, in her womb. Now the king met sage Shrutashrava, who told him that his son Somashrava will be able to instruct him in the necessary prayashchitas to be performed for having ill-treated the dog, and thus Somashrava returns with Janamejaya to Hastinapura. In some time to come, the king journeys to Takshashila, where there happens to be a sage named Dhaumya in his ashrama with his disciples. We now temporarily exit the story of King Janamejaya and the Naga sage, and we temporarily enter the story of another very related and relevant sage, Dhaumya by name. Dhaumya was one of the greatest men of his time, having been Yudhishthira's own Purohita and having outlived him by at least 2 generations. He was a man of extremely Satvika character, as we shall see throughout the rest of the Mahabharata, a man of very great morality and spiritual power. Reflecting this greatness, as a teacher were 3 of his students, Upamanyu, Aaruni and Vaida. The sage felt that it was time to test these 3 students to see whether the fruits of his teachings were spiritually attainable by his students. Now remember, any teacher would not want his students to be merely theoretical reciters of knowledge, but he would want them to be able to practically achieve whatever he has taught them. And to do this, he must, from time to time, test a variety of things, from their character and morality to their commitment to his teachings and their realization of the value of his teachings. And so Dhaumya sent Aaruni on his task to go and build a bridge across the Ganga river at Kedarakhanda with his bare hands. And like I said before, Aaruni never thought even for a moment as to how impossible this task is, and he never even thought of having second thoughts about doing this. He knew that his Acharya, being an extremely Satvika man who only would do good for him, would do only good for him by even issuing this seemingly impossible command at him, and therefore he blindly complied and went off to Kedarakhanda. And over there, when he was in Kedarakhanda, he tried repeatedly to find a way how to ford that river. And this went on for weeks. Week after week went by, and finally there came a time when Dhaumya finally called one of his students and asked, "What did you hear about Aaruni? Where is he?" The student said, "He is still in Kedarakhanda. We never heard of him." So Dhaumya says, "Okay, let me go to Kedarakhanda and let me see what's become of him." And there in Kedarakhanda, he got a shock. Being unable to ford the river in any way possible using his bare hands, Aaruni had laid down in the stream of the river, making himself into a human bridge across the river. Seeing his dedication in risking his own life by putting himself in the torrent of the Ganga, the highly impressed Dhaumya told Aaruni that, "You indeed are a true believer of all the Vedic teachings I have taught you and imparted to you." From this day forth, Aaruni was known affectionately by the name Uddalaka, which meant he who tried to ford the river. Again, it goes needless to say that when your Acharya tells you to do this, an Acharya who has taught you the way to God and the word of God in the form of the Vedas, when he tells you to do something, you must at the very least try it. Do not cross-question him, counter-question him and tell him, "I refuse to do what you're asking me to do. Give me some other task." No, it doesn't work that way. And thus, Aaruni passed his test. If you can't obey your Acharya in this way, your Vidya will go wasted. And so we learn from Aaruni that implicit belief, Mahavishwasa in your Acharya is extremely important. Needless to say, we will keep exploring this topic again and again and again throughout the rest of the Mahabharata. The topic I refer to is Vishwasa in your Acharya. Now next comes the test of Upamanyu. Dhaumya called upon Upamanyu and told him, "So your daily duties are to go grazing the cows of the ashrama in the forest nearby? Okay. What do you eat?" And Upamanyu said, I eat what's served in the ashrama kitchen." So Dhaumya said, "Oh, so you eat out of the ashrama kitchen? Okay, from now on, I don't want you to eat food from the ashrama's kitchen. Go do what you want." Upamanyu thought, okay, I shouldn't eat from the ashrama's kitchen, but my Acharya never told me that I can't eat from elsewhere, and so over the next few days. He begged for food from villages and passers-by, and being a Brahmana, he got alms. And he filled his stomach using that. Dhaumya, after a few days, banned him from doing even this. So Upamanyu began to drink milk of the cows he used to take grazing in the forest. And he used to fill his stomach using that rich quality of milk that you still used to get thousands of years ago in Bharatavarsha from cows whose breeds are even extinct today. And so he was able to fill his stomach in that rich, high quality milk that he got from the cow's udders directly. Dhaumya again heard of this, and Dhaumya after a few days said, "Okay, Upamanyu, no more drinking milk from the cow's udders." Now Upamanyu would go around, wait till the calves would start drinking milk, and wait till the drops of milk would drip from the mouths of the calves, and he would collect them in cups and bowls and he would drink them, albeit by now he was weakening physically. Dhaumya put a stop even to that. And when he did, over the next couple of days, hunger caught on to the boy who was going on herding cows in the fields nearby and the forest nearby, but was not allowed to eat anything for nutrition. And in his state of hunger, he went off into the forest, hoping that he could at least eat the berries and fruits over there, as his Acharya did not ban him from eating wild fruits and berries. But then in the process, he ended up eating a bunch of poisoned berries. And those poisoned berries made the boy go blind. And in his state of blindness, he roamed around trying to find the road back to the ashrama. And at this point, he fell into a well. A well that was not too deep, fortunately, but nevertheless, he fell into it. Now, a student in the ashrama saw the cows returning without Upamanyu, and he went in search of him. He finally heard the cries of Upamanyu in the forest, and he found him inside the well. He told him that he will be back with help, and he called upon Dhaumya and narrated to Dhaumya whatever had happened. Dhaumya ran to the scene. As a final phase to his own testing, the test which pretty much had brought upon this fate upon Upamanyu, he told Upamanyu to recite a Rigveda mantra which would end up invoking the Ashvin Devas, who would in turn help him out of the well. Now I am going to recite the shlokas that crunch the crux of that mantra, and at the end of those shlokas, we'll see something peculiar. Chitrabhanu Giravam Shamsami Tapasa Hyananto Divyau Suparnau Virajau Vimana Bhadikshipanto Bhuvanani Vishwa Hiranmayau Shakuni Samparayo Nasatyadasro Sunasau Vaijayanto Shuklam Vayanto Tarasa Suvema Adhivyayanta Vasitam Vivasvatah Grastam Suparnasya Balena Vartikam Amunchatam Ashvinau Saubhagaya Tavad Suvritta Vanamam Tamaya Yavasattamaga Aruna Udavahate Shashtischa Gavas Trishadascha Dhenava Ekam Vatsam Suvate Tam Duhanti Nana Goshtha Vihita Ekadohanastavaśvinau Duhato Dharma Mukthyam Ekam Nabhim Saptasatha Arashritaha Pradhishvanya Vimshatirarpita Araha Anemi Chakram Parivartate Jaram Mayashvinau Samanakti Charshani Ekam Chakram Vartate Dvadasharam Shannabhimekaksham Amritasya Dharanam Yasmin Deva Adhivishve Vishaktastavashvino Munchato Ma Vishidatam Ashvina Vindum Amritam Vritta Bhuyau Tirodattam Ashvino Dasapatni Hitva Girim Ashvino Gamudacharanto Tadvrishti Mahnat Prasthito Balasya Yuvam Disho Janayatho Dashagre Samanam Murdhni Rathayanam Viyanti Tasam Yatam Rishayo Nuprayanti Deva Manushyaha Kshitima Charanti Yuvam varnan vikurutho vishwarupamste dikshiyante bhuvanani vishva te bhanavopyanusritaschcharanti deva manushyaha kshitimaccharanti tau na satyavashvino vam maheham srajam chayam bibhritah pushkarasya tau na satyavamritavavritah vridhavrite देवांस्तत्प्रपदेन सूते मुखेन गर्भं लभतां युवानो गतासुरे तत्प्रपदेन सूते सद्यो जातो मातरमत्तिगर्भस्तावश्विनो मुञ्चतौ जीवसे गाम् स्तोतुं न शक्नोमि गुणैर्भवन्तौ चक्षुर्विहीनः पतिसम्प्रमोहः दुर्गेऽहमस्मिन् पतितोऽस्मि कूपे युवां शरण्यो शरणं प्रपद्ये. Look at the broad meanings of the words of this mantra. The Devas, the Ashvin Devas included, are not sources of the stars and the lokas, and they are not axle-less chariots of time that herald creation, but you can see on the screen the broad meanings of these mantras. They are called as axle-less chariots of time heralding forth creation, from whose bodies all devas and all stars and all lokas have emerged. But devas are jivatmans, like any other jivatmans. How could we credit the Ashvin Devas with this? They did not create the directions in which all the lokas are enhoused, and they are credited in the shloka as being creators of dimensionality itself. They themselves were created tangibly, physically, as we shall see in future episodes. They are called as beings who are enhousing a Vishwarupa that possess all creations within itself. But they are Jivatmans. How can they possess anything within themselves? The fact is that these mantras, like any mantra in the Vedas, do not speak of the Devata, but the Antaratman of the Devata that gave this said Devata its form and position, and is in fact the presider of the Sharira of the Devata itself. And thus, when that Antaratman is invoked in the form of a mantra, the Sharira of that Antaratman in the form of the respective Deva in question, in this case the Ashvin Devas, it gets invoked to come and do the invoker's bidding. Thus, the person being invoked over here is Sriman Narayana, the Antaratman of the two Ashvin Devas, and not the Devas themselves. It is Narayana who's invoked in all Veda mantras. And it is because he is the Antaratman of the said Devas and the Devatas. They get invoked as his Shariras. This is what Bhagavad Ramanujacharya has explained in his Shri Bhashya, as well as this is what Swami Desika has also explained in Rahasya Traya in various places. Upamanyu's righteousness in life, his austerities thus far, and his diligence in following his Acharya thus far, result in Sriman Narayana making that mantra bear fruit, and the Ashvin Devas appear inside the well. They restore his eyesight, take him out of the well, and bless him before his Acharya's very eyes, proving to Dhaumya Muni as well that his Shishya is truly a dharmic person. It was in Paramatma's name that the mantra was powered, and thus we are revealed by the first few pages of the Adiparva itself that this is how Paramatman Sriman Narayana is the controller of all beings and all things, and it is his name within the mantras that give power to the mantras. I am reminded at this point of a famous song that was composed, a famous kirtana that was composed by the Telugu Vaishnava saint Swami Annamacharya, Bhavamulono. It was made famous by M.S. Subbalakshmi. There is a line in that song that goes like this: Harinamamule anni mantramulu. It is in the name of Hari that all mantras in the Vedas are recited. And that song, the Kirtana itself, it is called Bhavamulona. I encourage the listeners to look up this Kirtana and listen to it. It's a very sweet song. The song's idea itself is to explain whatever the shloka explained, that everything is powered by Sriman Narayana, and without him nothing can exist. And you are pre-dependent on him, but he is independent of anyone. The very first few pages of the Adiparva itself is giving us some very highly guarded Vedic secrets. And we must be very grateful to Swami Vedavyasa folks. So we end our episode with the usual shout out to Dakshin Vrndavan. To be noted is that this organization is not a dairy farm. They do not sell dairy products, and they are a purely religious, dharmic organization whose sole purpose is to give cows and bulls, who themselves are the akaras of Shri and Narayana, a good life and ensure that Dharma continues in Kali Yuga. And I'm pleased to introduce two members of my own family in this picture over here. The two cows on the top row, the one on the left, top left, Surya Narayanan by name, and the one on the top right, Shukadeva by name. My family and I are highly honored to have adopted these two holy creatures into our own family as our own sons. You could invite these holy beings into your family by adopting cows at Dakshin Vrndavan by yourself. Bear in mind that if you are someone who can afford 45,000 rupees in an entire year, not a month, but in a whole year, that's all it's going to cost you to take care of a cow or a bull in Dakshin Vrndavan. And remember, in any yuga, for any dharmic activity to bear fruit, including listening to itihasas like Mahabharata and imbibing its dharmic essence and making yourself a dharmic person, in any yuga, for any of these things to come true, bear fruit, it cannot be done without Gauseva. It cannot. It just does not happen. And that's why cows have been made to make your dharmas bear fruit. And they are, needless to say, the reason why dharma still exists on the lokas. Gauseva transforms your mind into a dharmic space and enables you to master dharmic scriptures such as Mahabharata. I can personally attest that it has worked for me, and therefore it will work for you as well. Srimate Narayanaya Namo Namaha.